Reality Transurfing, Book 4, Ruling Reality, by Vadim Zeland, Part 2, The Dream of Gods. I care about my world. Two aspects of reality. Two aspects of reality. From time immemorial, people have noticed that the world is of a dual nature. On the one hand, everything that happens on the material plane is more or less understandable and can be explained from the point of view of natural laws. But on the other hand, when you get to encounter phenomena from the ethereal plane, these laws no longer apply. Why hasn't it yet been possible to unite the various manifestations of reality into one knowledge system? It is a strange picture. It is as if the world is playing hide and seek with human beings, not wanting to uncover its true self. Scientists no sooner discover a new law explaining one phenomenon than a new phenomenon suddenly emerges that defies the newly discovered law. And this hunt for the truth that is always slipping away like a shadow is always happening. But here's an interesting fact. The world is not only hiding its true face, it is also readily assuming the shape people give to it. This is what happens in all branches of the natural sciences. For example, if you imagine an object of the micro world as a particle, then there will certainly be experiments confirming that. But if you assume that it is not a particle, but an electromagnetic wave, the world won't disagree and will happily manifest itself accordingly. Similarly, one could ask the world the question, what is the substance the world is made of? Is it matter which has mass? And it will say yes. Or perhaps it is energy nonetheless? And again, the answer will be affirmative. In a vacuum, as you know, there is a continuous process taking place. The birth and annihilation of microparticles. Energy turns into matter and vice versa. Again, we shouldn't ask the world what comes first, matter or consciousness. It will continue to change its masks all the time, showing us the side we want to see. Representatives of various schools argue with each other, proving opposing viewpoints, but reality returns a dispassionate verdict. They are all basically right. It turns out that the world not only slips away, but agrees with us as well. In other words, it behaves like a mirror. Literally, all our ideas of reality are reflected in the world, no matter what they are like. But what are we getting at here? That all attempts to explain the nature of reality are in vain? After all, the world keeps agreeing with what we think about it, and yet at the same time keeps dodging a direct answer. It is actually much simpler than that. You don't have to look for absolute truth in separate manifestations of a multifaceted reality. You just need to accept the fact that reality is similar to a dual mirror. It has two sides. The physical one that you can touch, and the medical physical one, and the metaphysical one. You just need to accept the fact that reality is similar to a dual mirror. It has two sides, the physical one that you can touch, and the metaphysical that is outside of our perception but is nonetheless objective. At present, science deals with what is reflected in the mirror, while esotericism tries to take a look from the other side. And that is what constitutes their argument. Still, what lies hidden on the other side of the dual mirror? On the other side of the mirror is the space of variance, an information structure where the scenarios of all possible events are kept. The number of variants is infinite, like the number of possible locations of a point on a coordination grid. Everything that was, is, and will be is written there. Any event that happens to us in the real world presents a material realization of one out of a multitude of variants. It would seem difficult to believe that this is the case. Where is this space of variance? How is such a thing even possible? From the point of view of our three-dimensional perception, it is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Perhaps it lies outside the borders of the visible universe, or perhaps it's in your cup of coffee. In any case, it is not in the third dimension. The paradox is that we all go there every night. Our dreams are far from an illusion in the usual sense of the word. People lightheartedly reckon their dreams to be fantasies, not even suspecting that they reflect real events that could take place in the past or the future. It is well known that in a dream, you can see images that seem to be out of this world. And it is perfectly clear that you couldn't have seen it anywhere in reality. If dreams are a sort of imitation of reality generated by our brain, then where do all these unimaginable images and plots come from? If, for the sake of convenience, we were to ascribe all conscious elements in the human psyche to the mind and the subconscious to the soul, then we could say that a dream is the flight of the soul in the space of variance. The mind is not imagining its dreams, it does actually see them. The soul has direct access to the field of information where all scenarios and scenery are stored in a stationary manner, similar to the way frames are stored on a reel of film. The phenomenon of time appears only when the film reel is moving. Your mind acts as the observer and the generator of ideas. Memory has the same direct relationship to the space of variance. It has already been proven that the human brain is physically incapable of storing all the information that a person accumulates throughout his life. How is he then able to remember it? The thing is that the brain is not storing information as such, but rather something resembling an address to the data in the space of variance. The mind is unable to create anything that is fundamentally new. It is only capable of assembling a new version of a house out of old bricks. All scientific discoveries and masterpieces of art are obtained by the mind from the space of variance through the medium of the soul. Clairvoyance and intuitive knowledge also come from the same place. Discoveries in science, wrote Einstein, are made far from a logical way. A discovery obtains a logical form only later, when you describe it. Any discovery, even the smallest one, is always an illumination. The result comes from the outside and does so in such an unexpected way as if someone suggested it to you. You shouldn't confuse the space of variance with the well-known concept of a common information field, where data can be transferred from one object to another. The space of variance is a stationary matrix, a structure that determines everything that is and that could happen in our world. As yet, official science is unable either to explain or confirm the existence of the space of variance. On the contrary, scientists will attempt by any means possible to discredit the transurfing model, which is not surprising. After all, official science is a typical pendulum. Actually, science, with all its indubitable merits and achievements, is prone to brushing aside all the things that do not fit into its framework. When it encounters inexplicable things, it wriggles this way and that way, accusing its opponents of being charlatans, juggling with the facts, or simply ignoring the obvious, just so that it can remain on its granite pedestal. However, there was one man, the academic Vladislav Boronikov. Who managed to put science in an absolutely hopeless situation when he combined the perfectly inconceivable with something that is more than obvious. The children who attended the International Academy of Human Development, founded by Boronikov, demonstrate abilities that are truly extraordinary. They are able to see with their eyes closed just as well as with their eyes open. They are able to memorize huge amounts of data, and they have a gift of clairvoyance and can see faraway objects as if through a telescope. It's hard to believe, but the fact remains they can look through a wall as if it wasn't there. How do they manage to do this? This is how neurophysiologists researching the effect of direct vision describe their observations. With regular sight, the apparatus fixates the signal's place of entry, its movement in the brain, and its processing. With direct vision, the signal's place of entry is not registered. The signal's movement in the brain is absent, but our devices clearly detect the processing of the signal. All our attempts to block the entry of the signal into the brain yield negative results. We are discovering something that, with its physical parameters, manifests features that are unrelated to electromagnetic processes. It turns out that our brain is able to see on its own, without the medium of the visual apparatus. Moreover, it is not known how information is being received. How should we understand all this? Boronikov explains this phenomenon by suggesting there is a connection between human consciousness and what he calls superconsciousness. Superconsciousness, he writes, is something that is external to man, an environment of a kind. You have probably already figured out that in transurfing, this environment is called the space of variance. What does it matter what we call it, though? The essence remains the same. The mind, or if you will, the brain, sees what lies in the space of variance through the medium of the soul. Our eyes observe the physical reality. In direct vision, the brain connects to the metaphysical field of information, where the entire mold of the surrounding is stored quite literally. Having gained access to this database, you could examine objects regardless of their location. behind a wall, underground, or many miles away. In the space of variance, there are areas that have been manifested in reality and others that have not. In order to achieve direct vision, you have to learn to specifically perceive the current realized sector as a special synchronization pattern of the two hemispheres of the brain. Bronnikov developed a whole system of special, and at the same time very simple, exercises, allowing an ordinary person to develop these abilities. If you like, you can find information on the subject on the internet and give it a go yourself. It is all quite feasible. Information about all possible alternatives of the past and the future is also stored in the space of variance, and that means that access to the space of variance makes you clairvoyant too. The only problem is that there is an infinite amount of variance. Therefore, you may also see events that will never get realized. That is the reason why clairvoyants often make erroneous predictions. After all, you may get to see something that never took place and things that will never happen. In this respect, you don't have to worry. No one knows your future because no one is able to determine what variant will actually become realized. Just as there is no guarantee that you saw the space sector that will be manifested in reality. This is great. Since the future hasn't been fatally predetermined, we can continue to hope for the best. The aim of transurfing is not to look back at the past with regret or look forward into the future with fear, but to intentionally shape our reality. Under certain circumstances, the energy of human thought is able to materialize one or the other sector in the space of variance. In the state which in transurfing is called the unity of soul and mind, an incomprehensible magic power is born. External intention. And that is what makes a potential opportunity reality. Everything that is commonly ascribed to magic is directly related to external intention. With the help of this power, ancient magicians erected Egyptian pyramids and performed other similar miracles. This intention is described as external because it is external to human beings and is therefore not subject to the human mind. However, you can get access to it when you are in a certain state. If you submit this massive power to your will, you can do incredible things. However, modern people have long lost the abilities possessed by citizens of ancient civilizations such as Atlantis. Fragments of ancient knowledge have come through to our day in the shape of scattered esoteric teachings and practices. Using this knowledge in everyday life is rather difficult. Nevertheless, the situation is not as hopeless as it seems. Transurfing offers indirect methods, a bypass route, with the help of which you can nevertheless make external intention work. As a human being, you are capable of shaping your reality, but in order to accomplish this, you need to follow certain rules. Your ordinary mind tries unsuccessfully to manipulate the reflection in the mirror, when you actually have to change the original image itself. The image in this case is the direction and nature of your thoughts. In order to make your wishes come true, simply having a wish is not enough. You have to know how to handle the dual mirror, and you are going to learn how to do it. However, you'll have to thoroughly undermine the monolith of so-called common sense, although there is actually very little that is sensible about it. If you can accept the simultaneous existence of two sides of reality, physical and metaphysical, old stereotypes will collapse and the image of the world will instead become more and more clear. Dualism is an integral part of our reality. For example, the soul belongs to the space of variance, while the mind belongs to the material world. Internal intention deals with material reality, while external intention deals with the virtual sectors in the space of variance. When these two aspects of reality come together on the mirror surface, we get phenomena that are usually labeled paranormal or are yet to be explained. An obvious example of two images coming together is the wave-particle dualism, where a microobject behaves either as a wave or a particle. The birth and annihilation of microparticles in vacuum is another example of a borderline state, where reality fluctuates between the physical and the metaphysical form. However, the most incredible example of this still has to be us, living beings who combine both the physical and the spiritual in ourselves. We live, in a sense, on the surface of a gigantic mirror, on one side of which is our material universe, with the black infinity of the space of variance on the other side. In such a unique position, it would at any rate be short-sighted to live only within the limits of an ordinary worldview and use only one side, the physical side of reality. You are going to find out how to handle the dual mirror of the world, and then you will be able to accomplish things that seemed impossible before. You will learn that your possibilities are only limited by your intention. End segment. Echo's helping me read this book. Sweet parrot, sweet parrot.